Hey everyone, this is the Black Manga Critic here with another video for the channel. So this video is pretty much just going to be me doing a quick review and not necessarily an analysis, but just like a discussion about certain aspects of Welcome to the Ballroom episode 2. So I like, in a general sense, if I had to sort of rank sort of the episode for like on a scale of 1 to 10 and compare it to last week's episode, like last week's episode for me was kind of like a 5, like it was like a 5.5, like out of 10 or something like that. Like it was I wasn't necessarily feeling most of the like characters and things of that nature outside of Sengoku. I did like certain things like the way that they animated the box. The music was well put together. Like, so the production of the music, was pretty spot on for the most part, right? I said in the last video that, like, if you're going to be an anime that's invested in dance or any sort of like musical sort of like genre or whatever, like your music needs to be on point, and the music's on point for the most part. So in terms of comparing it to the last episode, episode 2 sort of like isn't like, I wouldn't say it was like a 9 out of 10 or anything like that. I would say it's like a solid 7.5. Like it bumped up like 2 points. Just because, like, I think that the characters seemed to be a bit more interesting in some ways. I also thought that, like, the animation also took a little bit of a step up in certain points in terms of, like, the way that the shadow was implemented, the way that, like, sort of like the sweat came off the junior champion's brow. Like, I thought that was well animated. But generally, like, I'm just going to talk about 2 things, right? One, like, the way the animation works really well to complement the sort of narrative that's trying to be told, and 2, like, characters and whether there was any sort of character development and whether there were characters that I thought like interested me. 1 as a dancer, and 2 as just an anime viewer. So the animation in this episode was like not necessarily like a huge step up, but it was definitely a step up. Like there were some things about the animation that I didn't really like in episode 1. Like the way that, let's say, like the Latin sort of ballroom like style was portrayed initially, and just the ballroom style in general. Like I thought like things moved a little bit too fast. You could tell that there was sort of like the character designs, because like they're very, like, the characters are very long. So that sort of like length got in the way of animating particular like ballroom like steps and things of that nature, right? So that got in the way a little bit. But I think with this episode, when they had like the Latin ballroom style, but they also had like a lot of the waltz, and I think that like they did a really good job of animating sort of waltz steps when it came to Fujita and the junior champion. I don't remember his name right now, but like, he was interesting enough, but like I guess like as a character, like I still need to see a little bit more from him. Like he's not like Sengoku in like his, like in the way that Sengoku sort of like leaps off the page, but in terms of sort of like the animation, I thought like the junior champion's sort of dancing was well animated. And Fujita following that waltz like movement was also well animated. Like I could follow it. It looked smooth. It was interesting. And I guess that like in terms of sort of like characters, whenever they were sort of dancing, like I think that like especially for Shizuku, like the animation really helped in terms of sort of developing her character aesthetically, right? In a sense that like, when she's at school, she's kind of like plain Jane looking, hair's down, glasses are on, right, basic like Japanese like school uniform, right? Like, so in terms of like the animation with the Latin dancing, I thought that was like really well done, because like there's like she's very bright, luminescent, right? The hair is up, the makeup's on point, right? The dress is on point, like everything is elevated, right? And the animation does a really good job of not only sort of elevating her aesthetic, but elevating her aesthetic while she's moving, right? Like it's easy to sort of like, I think like just in the general sense, it's easy to animate a character standing still, right? Like we've seen that all the time. But but to sort of maintain an aesthetic ideal throughout through movement like is tough. And I thought they nailed that with Shizuku. So when I say like the episode sort of bumped up from like a 5.5 to a 7.5, that's sort of including everything in terms of like animation and character development. So I think that in terms of animation, Shizuku looked fantastic while she was dancing with the junior champion. So there's that. I also really liked the way that they animated the junior champion dancing. I thought that was like that was like one of the few sort of like brilliant moments I think that I've seen in like any anime really. I don't think I've ever like watched an anime and felt something from like sweat coming off like a person's brow. You know what I mean? Like that was like next level kind of like animated storytelling. Just because like that's a thing, right? Like it's like you don't notice, like even like let's say like if you're like playing like a sport or you're dancing, and like for me like it's like if I'm dancing and I'm really like sweating, like you know, sweat's gonna come off, sweat's gonna go flying off. You know, you may not notice it, but like you may like walk across like the studio or something like that, or the dance floor or whatever, and you're like, damn, like I didn't realize it, like you know my sweat was like all over the place or whatever. You know, but like the fact that like they elevated to such a level that like right in episode 1, Fujita's sweat is all over the floor, but in episode 2, the junior champion sweat is like on a window. You know what I mean? Like that's like next level like practice, dedication, dancing. You know, and they animated that like really really well. I thought that was fantastic, and I think that like Fujita seeing that was also like, you know, like, and his sort of reaction to it was also fantastic, right? Which sort of leads me into my next point about the animation, which is the shadow, like the way that they animated that shadow concept, right? And that shadow concept is something that's, you know, seen throughout dance, sports, all sorts of things. And I mean, dance is a sport too, but like, you know, just like throughout like in other sports, particularly like boxing, like shadow boxing, like the shadow is a pretty well known concept. So I thought that they did that really well. I thought that they animated the shadow like brilliantly, right? Anytime like you saw Shizuku, right? Because pretty much every shadow was Shizuku, and every time the shadow was animated, it sort of reflected like just how people see Shizuku as a dancer, right? Like, and really as a person, because I don't think like people like other like Sengoku and the Junior Champion and Fujita, like they're not and other characters like who are sort of ballroom dancers, right? Like they're not looking at Shizuku as like, you know, plain Jane, you know, sort of like plain tinted, right? Basic Japanese school uniform, hair down, glasses on. Like they're not looking at Shizuku like that. They're looking at her as the elevated animation, right? Blue dress, makeup on fleek, right? Like hair's well did, right? Like they're looking at all of that. They're looking at her in that aesthetic. And I think that's really important because like the shadow was sort of like a representation of how people, right, perceive you and the way that you want people to perceive you and the way that you sort of put yourself out there, right? So if the shadow looks like that, and you sort of convey, you know, the best sort of version of yourself, and people see that in the shadow, then like, job well done, right? Like you've sort of accomplished your goal of how you want people to see you as a dancer. So I thought the animation did a really great job of sort of like narrating that, right? And like I think, you know, if you're going to, like I said, like again, like if you're going to do it like a dance anime, like a dance anime, it's not just sort of about the music. Like you also have to like animate the dance like steps and all of the dances like relatively well, and that has to sort of add to the narrative, right? Like dance is a narrative. Whenever you're dancing, like you're not necessarily telling a story, but you're sort of like conveying like an idea or an emotion or some sort of point, right? And they did that beautifully with the animation of the shadow. So that's all I'm gonna say, I guess, about the shadow, like in terms of the animation. Well, I guess another thing that I also thought was really great in terms of the animation was just like the way that like Fujita's staring was like animated, and I think like that's like a sort of like underrated kind of thing when it comes to animation. Just the way that like a character like looks at another like a character. You know, like sometimes like some like I can't remember like any anime that like were particularly bad at that, But I mean, like, I'm thinking of, like, like, because I believe that the same studio that animated Haikyuu is also animating Welcome to the Ballroom, right? So staring is like a huge thing in Haikyuu. When you watch Haikyuu, you're like that, like that's how they convey like aggression, like basic like levels of intensity, desire, things of that nature. So like Fujita's stare was just like really well done, right? Like he's just like, clearly like not just amazed, but like he's very focused on sort of being able to assimilate that that he's like that which he's watching, right? So when you see him staring, it's like really, really intense, and I felt that, and that's the thing, right? Like if you can animate a stare and make your viewer feel that intensity, like kudos to you, anime studio, kudos, because like I felt Fujita's like intensity, like, and I felt his desire to want to assimilate the movements of the junior champion, right? Like both at the competition and when he's at the studio. So that was like really well done, and also like while he's dancing, while he's like sort of like shadowing him in a sense, like not in the same way that like the shadow as a concept is used in terms of the animation, but just like as Fujita's shadowing the junior champion, he's like his stare is still like just as intense, right? Like and that matters because like that's like they're not talking, right? Like so you have to be able to tell a story and a narrative through the dancing, and staring and the intensity of that staring is important to this anime. I also thought there was a moment where the junior champion, like his stare was also like really intense. Right, there were just moments where like especially like at the competition where it seems like he's staring at Fujita, because that's the way it's sort of like the animation is kind of trying to narrate that, right? But I think like there are sort of like two things that are happening there, right? Like the first thing is that the guy is just intense when he's dancing, and that's just like any dancer, like sort of like not only worth the salt, but just any dancer that loves to dance. You know what I mean? Like I said this in my last episode, like you got to be intense, like you got to come with it. And most dancers that give a crap come with it every time they dance, right? So that guy comes with it, and the intensity is like shown not only through his dancing and through the animation of the dancing, but his eyes, like that's also important. Like he has to look like he gives a shit about his dancing, and he does. Like you really get that. And the second thing that I think that's sort of going on is that the narration sort of trying to sort of lead us to believe that he's staring at Vegeta, but there wouldn't really be any point in him staring at Vegeta. Like he doesn't really know who he is. Vegeta's like not on his radar like at all, because like he hasn't gone to a competition or anything like that. But I'm pretty sure like he was staring at Sengoku, and I think like that's what Sengoku sort of like, damn that kid or whatever, when he's finished dancing, because like this kid is coming for Sengoku, right? Like we have to sort of understand that like on the surface it's like Sengoku and like the junior champion are like the Latin junior champion, right? Like they're sort of like comrades in a sense of like they're both Latin ballroom dancers, and this kid comes to his studio to like work out and practice like his dancing and things of that nature. But this kid is coming for Sengoku's throne. Like we know it. That's why like Sengoku is always like trying to like sort of play with him, like like this kid is like Fujita's coming for you, because like in that way Sengoku can sort of say, oh well, the junior champion isn't coming for me because he has to worry about Vegeta. But actually no, like Sengoku, like stop playing yourself. This kid is coming for your throne, and I would hope that like at some point in the anime, I might start reading the manga at some point if the show gets like to a point where I'm really, really invested in it. But I hope at some point that like this kid takes Sengoku's throne, because like Sengoku, like you can't be like that cocky in a sense, because you like this kid is coming for you, so you got to go over there and like and practice your butt off so he doesn't take your crown and your throne, man. So I really appreciated the intensity of the stare, because it sort of conveyed two things, right? It conveyed that one, this guy gives a crap about his dancing, but two, he's coming after Sengoku. Like there's no question about that in my mind. He is coming after Sengoku. He is coming for the crown, and I hope that at some point he takes it, because that would really be a great sort of move in terms of storytelling, and it would add a lot more sort of depth to Sengoku as a character, right? Like what would he do in the face of like that sort of adversity, right? In a sort of sense of like a Hajime no Ippo, right? Where like people are like, you know, becoming champion and losing their championships left and right. So I guess the character development was pretty well on point. And just like, so, you know, like I'm moving on to character development. This is what I'm going to be talking about for the rest of the video. So the character development was really was a lot better than the first episode, right? Because we got to see it wasn't just about like the sort of like internal like narratives that are sort of going on in the characters' minds, like as they're dancing, as they're watching like others dance, you know, stuff like that. Like it was just a lot better. Like Sengoku clearly like is like noting that this junior champion is really, really good. He cares about his partners, and he's coming for Sengoku. Like Sengoku has to know that. He has to know that, right? Because like this guy's really good, right? And he's in the same style and he's doing the same style of dance that he's doing. So he knows he's coming for his throne, right? And I thought that was like that added a bit of character development for Sengoku, right? Like it sort of says like, okay, like this guy isn't just like, you know, sort of all flair and like you know, kind of like aggressive and that sort of like machismo sort of way. Like he's worried about losing his crown. Like I'm sure he's worried about losing his crown. You know, otherwise he wouldn't be so sort of like tough on the junior champion whenever like he's asking him to help him do something with Fujita, or even just you know, having a conversation or whatever, you know, right? And like again, like what I said, like about the like animation, like certain parts were really well animated in the sense of the dynamic between Sengoku and the junior champion when the junior champion sort of looks up in the stands, and it's clear that, like, for me at least, he's not staring at Fujita, he's staring at Sengoku, right? Because, like, why would he stare at Fujita? So that I thought that development in terms of like their rivalry, which is very clear to me, was great for episode 2, because like Sengoku needs, and he probably has rivals, but like he needs you know, someone that's coming after him, right? At least it's someone that's coming after him that he doesn't sort of necessarily deem much of a threat, but like at least on the surface. But like clearly, like he deems him like he's a real threat, like he's coming. So I thought that was good in terms of character development for Sengoku, and also just like in terms of the junior champion, because like he's like another character that I think that like genuinely like is very passionate about dance, right? Like we see that, and that's what I needed. Like I needed like to see another character that's like, yo, like I love dance. And I'm not just coming into this like on a whim. Like he's been dancing since they were like what, like 3? Like they were dancing, like he's been dancing for a long time. So that is like it's just like dedication, right? It's like he has the dedication, he has the passion, he has the intense there that like every like intense and badass anime character needs. And he's not necessarily badass yet, but I'm pretty sure that like as the episodes go on, we're gonna see more of him as he attempts to dethrone Sengoku. As he moves his way up in the Latin ballroom scene, and that's gonna be awesome, because we're gonna really see sort of the badass that is the junior champion. So, also, I guess I want to sort of say in terms of character development, Shizuku, I thought was also developed a little bit more. For me, like I appreciated it, right? Because like it wasn't like she wasn't just like the character that like Fujita is like constantly staring at or anything like that. Like she sets the mold for the way that the shadow is animated, right? And in that way, she also sets the mold for the way that other characters develop, right? Because like she's their muse, but she's also sort of like a character that not only helps like characters like Fujita and the junior champion develop, but they also help her develop, right? Like through their dancing, right? So when she's talking about the junior champion and like how they grew up together and everything like that, like that's good character development for her, because like we have to know that like at some level like there's someone that she genuinely cares about. You know what I mean? Like if you're just like a character and there's no one that you care about and you're just kind of like whatever, about everything that you're doing. Like, there's no real character development there. You know what I mean? Like, if we think about like Hisoka, like in Hunter x Hunter, like his character isn't really like developed really. Like there's some sort of progression necessarily, but it's a very like slow progression because like we're learning things about Hisoka, but he's not necessarily like growing at any sort of place in terms of like any terms in any sense, and he's not developing like as a character in any sense because he's just like, okay, like I just do whatever I want, and like you can't have a character like that in a dance anime because like dancing is all about development, it's all about progress, so it's all about becoming a better person through your dancing. So I thought that Shizuku like dancing with the junior champion, the way that they animated that, the way that she talks about him as if she's like as if he's a really important part of her life, I thought that was good character development for her. And Fujita got a little bit of character development, right? Like I think like you like as a protagonist, you damn well better be developing through every episode, right? Like, and if you're not, then there's got to be a reason for that, right? Like there's got to be a reason why the mangaka and the animators like aren't showing a sort of like character development for whatever reason, right? But Vegeta does get a lot of character development, and it's pretty good, and I enjoy it. And that's through like just like him practicing and also realizing that like he has to practice. Like he can't just be like, oh well, I'm gonna just watch and that's gonna be it, and maybe I'll pick up these moves. And also like assuming things about other people and especially about other dancers. Like the one thing like you definitely like shouldn't do about in terms of like just dance and just like anything that like is necessarily like competitive or whatever is like assume that like people don't practice at all or don't work hard at all, right? Like this junior champion works very hard. He is a fantastic dancer, and we see that like through the animation, through his dancing, that like this guy is like legit, right? Like he's a legit like competitor. He's a legit dancer that's passionate about dance, right? Like, and because there may be like some dancers that aren't necessarily passionate about dance. They may like dance, but like they don't want to go pro or anything like that. But like, or they don't want to dance like every day that they're alive. But like if you're passionate about dance, like you want to dance every day that you're alive. Like I want to dance every day that I'm alive. So I thought it was really great in terms of sort of like character development for Vegeta to sort of say like, hey, like I need to have that passion and I need to like, dedicate myself every day to just like, learning like the bare minimum of the dance moves that I need to learn. And that's why like at the end, it's really important that like one, he's just practicing basic waltz moves, right? And two, that Sengoku sees Shizuku's shadow as he's dancing. Because like that shadow doesn't appear unless you have a passion for dancing and a passion for your partner. So once again the animation of the shadow really works to develop the characters right that they appear with. So like that the shadows appear with, right? So like when Shizuku's shadow appears with Vegeta, it's awesome character development because we understand that like he's sort of reached a sort of level in terms of passion for dance where you can see Shizuku as he's dancing, right? So you see the dedication that he has not only to dance but to Shizuku as a partner because like eventually he clearly wants Shizuku to be his partner. So I thought that was great character development. So in a general sense, like I think that's all I wanted to say about the episodes. Like I mean, I guess like the music was cool. Like the moments when the music needs to be very tame and subtle and heartwarming are there, and when they need to be like aggressive, right? Like with the competition, it's there. So the music hasn't failed me yet. That hasn't been an issue, but that's really all I wanted to say about the episode. I thought it was definitely a step up. Like I said, like it wasn't like whoa from like a from like a 5.5 to like a 9.5, but it was definitely like like a good solid 2-point step up. And in my book, that's a pretty good like step up. So that's all I gotta say. Looking forward to episode 3, and to see like if there's more character development. The animation continues to improve. And that's it. Just like I said, like, comment, and subscribe. As always, I'm always, like I said, I'm always looking forward to hearing what you guys think. And if you want more content, subscribing is the easiest way to to be known about it. Find me on Twitter at the Manga Scholar, and I'm the Black Manga Critic, signing out.